What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I review recently released movies, and I tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. And tonight I've got another 2020 review. This is my second review of the night. I've got 3 more to go. I'm doing 5 tonight, which you guys will see in the next 2 or 3 weeks or so. I'm trying to do 2 of these per week. I'm doing 5 in a row. This is number 2. If you guys want to see my review of Becky, go back on my channel and check that out. This one is another 2020 release that is much talked about and much dismayed. This one is going to be my most controversial review that I've done in quite a while. It is The Boy 2, Brahms, The Boy 2. For those of you guys that have not seen the first one, it came out maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I really enjoyed that first movie. There will be spoilers to the first movie in this, but I won't spoil the second one necessarily until the end of the review. But I really like the first one. It's a basic kind of doll movie. For those of you guys that have not seen the first one, let's go ahead and get into the credits first, and I'll tell you guys about this movie and why I actually quite enjoyed this a whole lot. People did not like this movie. It is one of the most hated movies of the entire year in the horror genre. I think it's got 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. Every critic I've seen has torn this apart, and I can understand the reasoning, but I'm going to tell you why I disagree with that. This film was directed by William Brent Bell, who also directed the first one and directed Stay Alive. Written by Stacey Meniere, who also wrote The First Boy, and starring Katie Holmes and Christopher Convery. So again, this is a sequel to The Boy, the original, which is a couple of years old. In that first film, spoilers for those of you guys that have not seen it, a babysitter kind of comes into the house to watch after a doll. She thinks she's coming in to babysit a child. She's actually being asked to babysit a doll. That doll winds up kind of being haunted, so you believe. And the big twist at the end is the doll's not haunted. There's somebody living inside the walls who's moving the doll around and portraying the doll who gets killed. So you think to yourself, okay, the doll wasn't real and the guy was killed, so how are they going to do a sequel? Let me tell you how they did the sequel. So, all in all, before I get into the plot of this, because that will entail spoilers, I thought overall this was, it was only like 86 minutes. I think it was 86 minutes long, and I just, quite frankly, kind of enjoy these movies. It was not the most creative. It was not the most entertaining. It was not, it was a standard kind of doll slasher. It was another one of these haunted doll movies, but I think it was mindless fun. I've always enjoyed Katie Holmes. I enjoyed her very much in Dawson's Creek and Disturbing Behavior and all the things she's done in the past. I thought she was good. Christopher Convery, basically in the story of this movie, Katie Holmes' character gets attacked. She gets burglarized in the middle of the night, and then Christopher Convery's character, the child, sees her getting burglarized, so it kind of destroys their lives. Katie Holmes is constantly having nightmares. She's paranoid. She can't feel safe in her own home anymore after being burglarized. And Christopher Convery witnesses his mom being burglarized, and he no longer can talk now. He's got selective mutism where he can't talk after the event. So the family, the 2 of them and the father, move out to a different place, which is near the big mansion that took place in the first film. So they move into a new place. Christopher Convery's character, the child, comes across kind of a burial ground where the doll is buried, and he becomes friends with Brahms, and Brahms starts talking to him, kind of like it happened in the first film. So that is the general story of it. Very simple, run-of-the-mill kind of sequel story. Again, the same writer and director, similar kind of idea. I thought that it relied a lot on jump scares, but the jump scares did hit. It was a lot of just loud sounds, but the jump scares were spread out in a nice way, and I thought the sound design was good. It played in at the right times. I thought it was shot okay. Nothing special, but you do get some nice different character shots. I thought in telling with facial expressions, Christopher Convery was solid. He didn't have much to do as far as lines or anything, so he didn't get to stand out as an actor, but he did tell the story with his facials a little bit. He was kind of the creepy kid who you kind of want to root for, but you're kind of not sure. He did well, and I thought Katie Holmes carried this. From the acting perspective, I thought she did very well. This was a good role for her. So I guess I can't talk much about the really debated parts of this movie without giving spoilers. So this is going to be the end of the non-spoiler portion of the review. I'm going to give this film, based on a solid, fun, jump scare doll movie, that I think moved along fast. I think the characters were fine. I think the pre-exposition of the characters was good. Getting them back into the old location was good. They had some good continuity, at least for the first half of the film. So I'm going to give those things a positive mark and say, all in all, I would give this film a surprising 6.5 out of 10. So that is my non-spoiler portion. Now, if you guys want to stick around to find out why the hell I'm defending this movie, this is the reason. Here are the spoilers. So basically, the twist you find out in this movie is that the doll starts to move. Unlike the first film where the doll never actually was haunted, somebody was in the walls moving him. In this film, the doll starts to move. His eyes blink, his head moves, he moves from spot to spot. He's involved in a lot of good jump scares, and he looks pretty menacing. It adds a lot of tension to the film. They do build up tense moments and good jump scares, and they use the doll way better in this film because the doll couldn't move in the first film. So they used the doll pretty well in this film to move around, which I liked. Now you're asking, how can the doll move when the doll wasn't actually haunted in the first film? The writer and director kind of retconned the ending of the first film. In this movie, Brahms actually is haunted. The doll is a doll, and the story they tell is that Katie Holmes is looking back through past news articles to try to figure out what's going on. She finds all these different cases where the Brahms doll got in different people's heads. He was able to talk to them through being haunted and convince them to do bad things to their families. So he was able to kind of possess people in a way and convince them to be his and do bad things to the family. So that kind of changes the entire first film. Because they tell the story then that the first guy in the walls was also kind of possessed by Brahms and was told to do bad things, and that's what caused the family to commit suicide as well. The parents in the first one to commit suicide as well, and that the neighbor in this film, who's kind of like the guardian of the lands that Brahms is buried in, actually found the doll when he was destroyed after the first film, put the doll back together and buried him so that he could find a new owner, a new boy to latch onto. He was also possessed kind of by Brahms and convinced to do bad things. So the spirit has a hold on people, including the guy in the first film and including the guy who rescued the doll for the second film. So it does kind of connect in a way, but it just changes the lore. Now, for someone like me, the few people that liked the first movie, because the first one wasn't that popular either, but I really enjoyed the first one, I was kind of scratching my head at the end of the first one going, I expected this to kind of be a child's play, kind of just fun doll movie. They used a twist of the doll being a real person. I'm not sure how I feel about this because the doll was never possessed in the first place. So I felt the first ending was a little bit strange and was just put in there to make it different. In the second one, they connect the stories by saying that it is basically what you think it is. It is a haunted doll movie. The guy in the first thing was haunted by the doll. So they essentially changed what made the first one interesting, but then they made the series kind of feel smoother to me. So in retconning the first one, they made the second one make more sense in a weird way, because you couldn't have a sequel without that being the story, without the doll being haunted. You couldn't just have a brand new guy living in a new set of walls. It wouldn't make any sense. So, in effect, they killed the first movie to make the second one. And what's weird about this is, it's not just another sequel by a brand new team who didn't watch the first one. It's the same writer and director who are changing their own story for the sake of making a sequel. Now, is it just another one of those studio cash grabs? 1,000%. Is it kind of a cheap way out to change the story of the first one just to make the doll haunted? Absolutely it is. Is it the most creative thing in the world? Did they have to rely too much on jump scares? 1,000%. But they took what I thought was strange about the first movie and made it into a second movie that can now come back for a franchise. And when I say this, I mean this in a positive way. If Happy Death Day is our current version of Scream, where we get sequels and new masked killers and trying to figure out who the killer is, then The Boy is our new version of Child's Play. Now, I'm not comparing the two necessarily. Child's Play obviously is iconic, it's classic, it's amazing. The Boy is nowhere near in its class. But it is our modern day version of Child's Play. It is a haunted doll film now, where this doll now moves around, tries to get close to kids and convince them to do bad things and be with them forever and ever, just like Chucky did to Andy. Except instead of being possessed by Charles Lee Ray, it's possessed by a new ghost. We really don't know who the ghost is. We don't know who we initially thought Brahms was the man in the first film. Now we don't really know why the doll's possessed. So that is another one of the unanswered questions. So this film did create a lot of storyline plot holes. It did create a lot more questions than answers, but it also answered some things and fixed some things in the first film for me personally. Now again, the people that like the first film for the twist might not like this film. The people that want to see something creative and innovative aren't going to like this film. But for me, it's a fun, I've always loved the doll subgenre of horror. I've always loved the whole doll chases child around jump scare thing. I've been watching and creating my own scripts and my own books and watching and reading a lot of horror films in the indie community that are super creative and super fun and make you think the entire time and take you on the drug acid trips and all that stuff. This is a mindless, turn your brain off, haunted doll jump scare movie, and if you like those, you'll like this. And if you didn't necessarily understand or were confused by or weirded out by the first twist in the first movie, you might like this one better. So again, I'm not going to be as quick to dismiss this movie. It might not be on the level of A Child's Play or Dolls or Puppet Master or anything like that, but it is a mindless, fun doll movie. It moves by quickly, the acting is solid, the jump scares are decent, and I think it's solid. So overall for me, 6.5 out of 10. I'm sure a lot of you might disagree. Tell me in the comments below why you agree or disagree with my reasoning, or if you want any more explanations, tell me in the comments below. I've got 3 more of the drive-ins to shoot tonight. I hope you guys like this controversial drive-in edition of The Boy 2.